Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Erin Shields, and I'm a marine scientist at the Chesapeake Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve at VIMS. And I work with Submerged Aquatic Vegetation, or SAV communities. So that's what I'm going to be talking with you today about. All right, so SAV are rooted vascular plants. This does not include marsh grasses or algae. They grow completely submerged. They produce flowers and seeds. And in the Chesapeake Bay, they grow in shallow tidal waters, usually less than 2 meters in depth. And they grow in both fresh and salt water. So SAV in the Chesapeake Bay is distributed by salinity, or how salty the water is. So in the upper rivers, we have a variety of freshwater mixed species. And as we move down the bay, we get some Potamogeton species. In mid-salinity areas, we have rupia or widgeon grass. And in the salty parts of the bay on the eastern shore, we have Zostera marina or eelgrass. So here are some examples of two of the native freshwater and brackish species we have. There's wild celery and then water stargrass, which produces these really pretty yellow flowers that actually stick up above the water surface. And we do have some invasives you may have heard of, hydrilla and water milfoil. And then our saltwater species are eelgrass and widgeon grass. And these are really the only seagrass species in the bay. So when I say SAV, I'm talking about all the submerged aquatic vegetation that grows in both fresh and salt water. When I say seagrass, I'm really just referring to these two species that grow in the saltier parts of the bay. So seagrasses are a unique group of flowering plants that have adapted for life in the marine environment. They evolved from land plants about 100 million years ago. And there's only about 72 species in the world. And they're unique in that they're adapted to life in salty water. They're able to grow completely submerged, and they have extensive root and rhizome systems to keep them anchored. And then they have what's called hydrophilous pollination, which is pollination aided by water. And this is a video that I took just swimming through the grass beds at Goodwin Islands, which is at the mouth of the York River, which is where we do a lot of our work. And this plant, the taller broadleaf plant here, is the eelgrass. And then you can see the shorter, thinner leaf plant here, which is the widgeon grass. And you can see the kind of fuzz that's growing on the leaves, and those are epiphytes, so it's just algae that is growing. It can sometimes cover a significant portion of the leaves. Historically, the bay saw really huge declines in its submerged aquatic vegetation populations back in the 1970s. And since that time, we've had periods of rebound and then some periods of decline. Originally, the major reason for the declines was something called eutrophication. And this refers to excess nutrients coming into a system and causing a variety of problems with the water. So this is just showing how nitrogen and phosphorus can come in from all these different variety of sources: agriculture, atmospheric emissions, wastewater discharge, residential developments. All these nutrients come into the water and fuel these algae blooms. So SAV are photosynthesizing plants. They need a lot of sunlight to survive. This is what we would like to see. This really clear water here is just looking up through this eelgrass bed. Oftentimes this is what we see though. You see the algae is just clouding the water, and these epiphytes are growing and shading the leaves, so they are not getting enough sunlight to survive. Sediment pollution is also a problem. So sediment can run off into the bay from a variety of sources. This is a really cool satellite imagery after Tropical Storms Irene and Lee in 2011, if you remember those, just showing this huge sediment plume making its way down the Susquehanna and then the other tributaries of the bay as well. Physical disturbances can also be an issue. So this is imagery of a grass bed in Ocean City, Maryland, and you can see it's next to this marina. So these boats come in and out of here, and their propeller hits the grass and causes these propeller scars. And then similarly, this imagery was able to pick up these kind of donut-shaped scars in the grass bed. This is from hydraulic clam dredging. So one really big problem for eelgrass in particular right now is water temperature. Eelgrass is a temperate species, so it's distributed globally here in orange. And you can see that we are right near its southern distribution in the North Atlantic. So with global climate change, we're seeing the Chesapeake Bay waters warming. We're seeing a greater frequency of these heat wave events, and whether they last for a week or longer, this can be really detrimental to eelgrass because it just really prefers colder water. All right, so why do we care? Well, these ecosystems are really important for a variety of reasons. The grass produces oxygen from photosynthesis. Their blades growing in the water traps sediment and settles it, so it clears up the water. That can dispel wave energy, reducing erosion. They absorb nutrients from the water column, and they provide a really important habitat for a variety of species. These are just some of the critters that we've gotten pictures of when we were out working in the grass beds. You can see all the different variety of things you might see out there. Shellfish and juvenile fish, pipefish, blue crabs, seahorses, just really cool stuff if you're ever able to stick your head under the water in a grass bed. One of my favorites we were able to capture, it was a bit of a murky day, but we captured this striped burrfish trying to get away from us here. And then here is just giving you an example of the little fish that'll hide out in these grass beds and take refuge from predators. So if you look closely, you'll see it here in a second. And this is a blenny. So one more recent area of research is what's called blue carbon. And this refers to the removal of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere through plant growth, so through plant biomass, and then carbon burial into the sediment. And research is showing that seagrass beds are really efficient at taking this carbon out of the atmosphere and burying it for really long periods of time into the sediment. So they're potentially important players in the fight against global climate change. All right, so at CBNERR, we have some sites around Goodwin Island, around the York River, where we have continuous monitoring stations. So we go back to the same sites every time. If it's really shallow, we'll snorkel. If it's deeper, we'll use scuba. And it's not your traditional scuba you think of, but we put the air tank on this dinghy, and then this long hose connects the regulator to me, where I can then breathe underwater without having that heavy tank on my back. So I'm able to move around a little bit easier. And we go out every month from April to October. We use these quadrats where we measure the percent of the bottom that's covered by grass. We count the number of plants, and we measure how tall they are. And also water depth and a variety of other measurements. And the Water Quality Lab at CBNERR maintains these water quality stations all over the lower bay, and these are pilings that house these data sondes. And these sondes are taking continuous water quality measurements every 15 minutes. So this is an example of what they look like in action. So these are the probes that are measuring these different water quality parameters, and they have these wipers. So they'll self-wipe and they'll keep themselves clean, the probes clean while they're out there, and that way we can leave them out for extended periods of time. All right, so we have all this monitoring data, we have all this water quality data, and we're able to use it all to relate changes in SAB abundance and distribution with changes in water quality. And specifically, we've been able to pinpoint some heat events in 2010 and 2015, which caused large-scale eelgrass declines. And what we found was following these declines in eelgrass, the widgeon grass populations really exploded in these areas. This could be for a number of reasons. Widgeon grass is more heat tolerant, and also once eelgrass dies back, it's no longer competing with it for space and light, so it's able to really take over some of these areas where it didn't grow before. And this is just these beautiful rupia beds that we found after these eelgrass declines. This is really shallow water, so the grass grew so tall that it had to kind of lay over on the water surface, and we could just walk through these really extensive meadows, and it was really neat to see. All right, so switching gears just a bit, I want to mention the restoration program that Dr. J.J. Orth started a while back. And this is over in the eastern shore in the coastal bays. So eelgrass died out there many years ago and never returned back to the system. So Dr. Orth's lab started a restoration program to reseed the area. So these are the seeds of eelgrass. They're tiny. Eelgrass produces these reproductive shoots every spring. And they would actually go out and hand harvest them and bring them back to the greenhouse and put them in these big tanks where the seeds would then fall out. They'd be able to collect them, and then they actually just broadcast them over the side of the boat. So the seeds settle very quickly after they hit the water. You can see these plots in 2004 that they seeded, and then this whole area by 2010 had just filled in with eelgrass. And it is considered the world's most successful seagrass restoration project. And along with this, scientists started a bay scallop restoration program. So the bay scallop was nearly extinct along the eastern shore for over 75 years, and it disappeared from the coastal bays at the same time the eelgrass disappeared. And now that their habitat is back, scientists are reintroducing the scallops back to the area. And hopefully some of you saw the video that VIMS shared on their Facebook page, and also you can find it on their YouTube page about this restoration project. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to watch it. It's definitely worth 9 minutes of your time. It's just really interesting to learn all about this project. All right, so thank you so much. I really enjoyed sharing these super cool underwater grass beds with you, and I hope you enjoyed it too.